Well, let's get started. Hello, everyone. I'm Rick Mislin, your town hall moderator for tonight, and welcome to my class here in the Saunders College of Business at RIT in beautiful Rochester, New York, where today's high was about 35 degrees. At least it wasn't snowing yet. To begin tonight, I want to welcome you to the fourth of our 4 nights of the Saunders Cyber Risk and Resilience webinar series, featuring our guests tonight, Chris Moschovitis and Marco Di Pasquale. For those of you just joining us tonight, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about how this came to be. During my class this semester, one of our students asked if I knew any of the people in the cybersecurity videos we were watching, and I replied, kind of. And then it dawned on me, especially during this time of online and distance education, it made more sense to reach out to the stars of these videos and books and have them answer for themselves. So since reaching out to our selected speakers, our students have prepared some questions for tonight. And additionally, our speakers may have their own prepared statements. So as I've said before, that's my story. I'm still sticking to it. And now on to our administrative details. Our Zoom class tonight is being interpreted, captioned, and recorded. So I would ask that you please mute yourselves and remind you that if you don't need our interpreter services, you can click on the gallery view. And as per the rules of the webinar, there will be no mute button for our guests tonight. And with that, I'm super excited to introduce our first guest of the night, Mr. Chris Moschovitis. I want to just kind of give a little bio here. Originally from Athens, Greece, as you can see in his background there. Chris moved to the United States where he studied physics, computer science, and mathematics, receiving his Bachelor's of Science degree from the State University of New York College. Down the road, or up the road at Brockport. I'm not from the area. So following his move to New York City, Chris was appointed Director of Academic Computing at Pratt Institute. A few years later, was recruited by the O'Connor Group for the position of Vice President of Information Technology. In 1989, soon after he started his own company, the Technology Management Group focused on providing independent strategic consulting, information technology, and cybersecurity managed services. The firm further expanded its offerings in 2004 by investing in eMedia, a prominent, award-winning, and internationally acclaimed interactive software development firm, forming Tmg Media. And today, it's one of the premier independent consulting firms in the country for this work. For us specifically, we use Chris's book, Cybersecurity Program Development for Business, the Essential Planning Guide, in our class. And we look forward to his second book, Privacy, Regulations, and Cybersecurity, the Essential Planning Guide, which is coming out, I think, February 2021. And like myself, Chris is a history buff, co-authoring the History of the Internet, 1843 to the present, and contributed to the Encyclopedia of Computers and Computing History. So now as the chairman and CEO of Tmg Media, Chris continues to lead the firm's consulting practice, focusing on strategy, governance, privacy, IT value creation, and cybersecurity value preservation. And I think as a side note, Chris, you have a connection to RIT.
Yes, I do have a connection to RIT, although not an alum. I did attend a couple of computer science graduate classes after I graduated Brockport. And then I moved to New York City. And one of my dearest and closest friends is at NTID, Professor Donna Lang. Donna Lang is at the computer science area at NTID, and she's a very, very dear friend. We go many, many years back. Which, you know, this whole bio you've been reading, Rick, it just made me feel so old. I mean, it's like, yeah, all of these things did indeed happen. Yeah, a long time ago.
We stand on the shoulders of many, Chris, and I've said that before, right? We've all been young at some point. We've all started at the beginning, right? And so here we've got a handful of students here tonight that are knocking on that door. And I know we all have questions for you. I know you have some things you want to chat about, and we are you're our guest, and we're at your disposal for the next hour and a half. So. We look forward to hearing from you.
Sure.
I do want to start off though. Your book stood out for us. The students in this class are MIS students. We're not the, I won't say this specifically, we're not the typical cybersecurity student, right? We're not the ones that are learning the coding or sitting behind the Linux box typing away trying to pen test or what have you. However, we do have those in the class. That said, we are project managers, we are business students, we see that we are systems thinkers, we are design thinkers. And so we look at it at an opportunity to bring cybersecurity into that fold of systems thinking and mental models and visioning and creating, what is a secure environment. And so this is a little bit of a different take for us. And that's even the class is called Risk and Resilience, because that's what it is for us.
Well, you're my favorite kind of people, first of all. And the reason why I say that is because it is in the hands of an audience like this that true business transformation will take place in the future. It is in the hands of students like yours that the handshake will finally be completed between professionals in the IT field, in the cybersecurity field, and in the privacy field. It is exactly this kind of knowledge that is essential and desperately missing today from the business world. I literally, this morning, I came away from a meeting of somebody who has enterprise vision, is in private equity, and it was putting together a roll-up of a variety of things. And the void in understanding cybersecurity, understanding IT value creation, understanding governance, understanding privacy considerations was stunning to me. Here is somebody that clearly in command of many millions of dollars and out there doing all of these things, relatively a young professional in his 40s or 50s, and the disconnect between IT, privacy, cyber, and business vision was shocking. And I think I wanted to bring this up today because it is exactly this audience that will someday bridge this gap. And it is exactly for this audience that I wrote both books. Because yes, you're right. If you want to find detailed technical information on how to pen test or how to do ethical hacking, there are different resources for you to do that. What I wanted to bridge from the beginning was this gap between technology speak, cybersecurity speak, and business speak. It is, and by the way, I to be clear, I do not blame the business people for their lack of knowledge. We are equally responsible. We as technologists have been very poor at handshaking. We're comfortable sitting over here speaking in Klingon, and they're comfortable sitting over there looking at us funny, and nobody is bridging that gap. And I think that this is just it is critically important, because the more time goes by, the more every business becomes a technology business. And therefore, the marriage between these knowledge fields becomes just absolutely critical. The things that I wanted to focus and talk a lot tonight fall exactly along those lines. And they are specifically addressing some of the issues of governance, some of the issues of separation of church and state, if you will, in the business world, which is the separation of value creation and risk. And so for the example that I give frequently is like IT is the ultimate value creation vehicle, right? So your CIO, your IT function in any business is there for a reason. Is a business enabler, is a value creator. Cybersecurity, on the other hand of the story, is not. It's not a value creator. It's a value preservation instrument. So these two things are like two railroad tracks. They never really meet, and God forbid they cross, because the results tend to be rather catastrophic. Yet so many companies that don't get this governance difference will frequently have one report into another. And this is such a conflict of interest in the business, because obviously one or the other is going to miss. Throw into this mix now privacy, which is really a whole other fascinating category linking both of these fields. And why, and why is it leaking? We're just going to take a very quick parenthesis. Why is privacy such a big deal? What is going on with it? Well, it is because over the past 20 years, certainly the most valuable currency, the most valuable ore by which we create value is what? It's data, and it is personal data. So we have the bizarre circumstances now where we see whole industries depending on the mining and harvesting of this ore, which is personal data, and we are the ore, and we're providing this ore free of charge.
Right.
We are giving it away. And then all of a sudden you get into these conflicts of, well, what does privacy mean? And we should protect it. And then you have regulators coming up and saying, oh, we need to protect private data. And it's like, well, you're kind of late to the party. And also now you have a whole global economy that's based on this currency. So what exactly are you protecting? How are you protecting it? Because obviously the machines that are creating this is IT. Cybersecurity is protecting the IT value. Privacy is in the middle of it. So what exactly is your plan? How is this going to work? And there is an equally big gap between privacy legislation and business reality. So this is where I wanted to stay, and I wanted to, I'm very interested in hearing from you, from everyone, from all of you folks. What do you think? How will these things resolve? I've done my research. I have some ideas.
So what's interesting is this is typically to a generation who has grown up with this
exactly
giving away of data because I get free whatever, right? I get free Google Map, or I get free friend connections, and it's sometimes, I think, difficult for them to understand a world that wasn't that way.
Right.
And so I'm looking at it in a different way now, where, is there a way to get it back? Right. And so there are some new efforts out there, and I've run across a few of them, where they're actually allowing people to mine the personal data or protect their personal data, but pay them through Ethereum or Bitcoin or other ways, so that they become the owners of their data again. But it also lends to proving that this is what it is, instead of the falseness that's being portrayed out there about me or somebody else. So we're moving in a new vector even with that. And again, it's applying the cybersecurity through value monetized effort.
Exactly.
Whether it's and maybe taking it back. I'm curious though, what questions the students might have in that space with their private data, or in general, what they feel about their private data being used as currency.
Right, because it certainly is being used, willingly or unwillingly, it is being used, and there is some stark realities. So the first part of the reality is like, let's just quit the lying. Let's just stop telling people that, oh, no, your data is anonymous. It is aggregated. It's like the Google thing is not listening to you, and Alexa is really, really quiet in the corner, not doing anything. When there is repeated time after time after time, hundreds of scholarly work demonstrating that, yeah, they're listening, and yeah, this thing that you say is anonymous data, well, really not so much. It just takes 3 more data points, and then we can call, we get Rick's number and his social security, and So can you get this back? Can you get this data back? Barring extraordinary legislation and with a worldwide coordinated effort, I have very big doubts. Can you monetize it? That's going to be a little easier, because I think people are starting to recognize that, Facebook is making billions and billions and billions of dollars out of your own data that you're giving it out for free. So maybe there is like, well, wait a minute, how about the more I post and the more I share, I get a piece of this action.
Right.
And so on and so forth. And the deeper philosophical questions, of course, remain, where you have essentially the ultimate triangle where you have, and you know, I'm not trying to call Facebook out. So a social media monopoly, okay, which knows where you are, how you feel, what your plans are, who you're with, what your political affiliations are, what you like and dislike. It knows all of these aspects of what makes you a person, right? A social person, I mean. So that's one. You have Google, who is the ultimate search repository. So not only do I know you as a social person, I also know what you're looking for. At any one point in time, I have a timeline that says all of these different things that you're looking for. And I also have another massive organization that says, whatever it is you're looking for, I can sell it to you and can deliver it to you with no delivery charges. Okay? Right. And all these three organizations collect and process an enormous amount of PII. So what are we going to do with this? You know, how much is this worth it to us as a society? And how much is it worth it to us as a business? As a business, clearly it is worth an enormous amount of money.
Sure.
Right?
I mean, right. Just even, we've talked about the predictive analysis of, Amazon, right? You purchase enough things, it's going to tell you what you need next before you even think about it, or before you even Google search it. Interesting.
And yeah, and that is the kinds of stuff that keeps me up at night, because if Amazon can tell me what the next thing that I need to buy is, Google can answer a question that perhaps I haven't even formed yet. Right. But at this point, you are guiding me. You are the shepherd, and I am the sheep. And you are guiding me towards destinations that perhaps may be beneficial to me and to my peers and to my society at large, or they may be beneficial to your business model. Right. And that's when we get into scary science fiction, apocalyptic kind of stuff. We get into like Max Headroom stuff. There's probably not enough people old enough to remember what Max Headroom was. But you get the idea, right? I mean, this can be very.
Oh yeah, the predictive analysis is huge. I mean, that's the thing. We I mean, even with Facebook, these are people you probably don't know, but you probably should know them. LinkedIn, the same way, right? They have enough people in common with you that you should be talking to them. And if not, maybe they have your next job waiting for you, right?
Exactly.
So I'm interested, again, we know we had some questions, and I know there was a document floating around from the students. I'm not sure if they have that up or if that's available, but if you've got a question tonight for Chris, please pop it up in chat to start off, or we'll just keep chatting about the monopolization of private data.
Well, while we wait, it's the new book that's coming. It's out on February 3rd. Privacy Regulations and Cybersecurity. It's gone out to a lot of reviewers and to get everything from blurbs to actually get feedback. And so many people are coming back with like, I didn't even know the privacy definition. It was sort of like one of those things where like, do you know what pornography is? Hell no, I don't know what pornography is, but I know when I see it.
I see it.
So a lot of people feel the same way about privacy. And there is all of these philosophical, socioeconomic, political considerations on these subjects across the board, by the way, right? IT with big data processing, AI, and all of that value creation going on over there. Cybersecurity, making sure that data is not exfiltrated, protected, and all of that kind of stuff. And then privacy considerations. And I don't know. I only want you to have my data, but I don't want him to have my data. All of it. Right. So there is all of this stuff that's way up there, but there is also a very practical day-to-day life that we have to live, and we live in an environment. Well, even considering rolling these conveniences back is unthinkable. I don't think that people are going to consider living in a world without Google
right.
So it's, yep.
You know, and I think that's it, right? You can't roll it back, but you can what is the word? I want to say it's divine or you know, weed it out and make it more, you know, focused on as to how we should use it. You know, and we've watched these big companies, you know, use their cars to drive around to map our streets. And one of the companies I'm thinking of is actually doing now proof of location, where they're having other people verify that really is the building where this company exists, and they get paid for telling you that. So
Right.
it's again, we're looking at this model and saying, there's a way to get paid for this stuff. How do we do that?
Right.
You know?
Right.
So you do have a few questions that have come up. So
I do. Well, Avi, first of all, thank you very much, Avi, for your kind words. I appreciate that. Tell your friends. Thank you. No, I really appreciate many people, the kind words and the feedback that I've received from everybody. It's touching, it's encouraging, it drives me forward. So I'm deeply appreciative for comments like Avi. On the comment, or what are the, I want to make sure that I pronounce the names right. Finbar Galvan. What are the greatest misconceptions you see when it comes to people not in the cybersecurity space? Well, the biggest misconception by far is my data is safe. So you start from that misconception, and the my data part. I'm not talking about the individual data. You know, I operate in the business environment 99.9% of the time, so I very rarely deal with individual privacy data questions as a consultant. But a lot of business owners, their first go-to is, oh, my data is safe. And by that, so that becomes the root of a tree that this misconception grows off and says things like, well, you know, I'm too small of a company and nobody cares about my data. Nobody's going to reach for my data. I am, you know, two women and a dog running a very small shop. Why would they care about me? And so on and so forth. And the misconception grows and grows and grows. The idea of what is the appropriate level of threat grows directly from that. I'm not a threat because my data is not important. And the immediate answer to that is like, time out. If you have things that are of value to you, and therefore by extension of value to your clients, that's worth something. And if it's worth something, it's worth something to somebody else. So somebody else is going to try to either steal it or compromise it because it's there. So if I can get this data, I will be able to change it, compromise it, sell it, underbid you, do all of these things, and it's easy to do. Well, why haven't they done that for me yet? Because we haven't gotten to you yet. The list is like really long. Okay, we're working our way down the list. At some point, we'll get there. I mean, we've reached a level in ransomware now where there is actually help desk, ransomware help desk, when you call them up to find out how you can pay. And then, and this is not a lie, I'm not exaggerating, they send back a feedback survey. How was the support you received? I mean, seriously. So the greatest misconception is this false sense of security. That would be the thing that
I'm going to add to that, right? I mean, that's kind of the problem, though. You mentioned the small business, right? The donut shop or the mom and pop shop that makes something small, yet they're the ones that can't afford this. How do we bridge that gap for them, right? And we've asked this question nightly on our seminar, right, to all of our speakers. We've talked about volunteering as students, as a university, coming up with some kind of a program. Right. What do you think? What recommendations would you make in that space to help out? RIT planting a flag for small and medium-sized business as cybersecurity, in business aid, if you will. What are some thoughts in that direction?
I think, and you and I are very well aligned in our thinking. We both believe that engagement and knowledge dissemination is at the end of the day the only weapon you have against any form of darkness. And lacking cybersecurity knowledge, lacking IT knowledge, lacking privacy governance knowledge, all are mitigated. The ultimate control, right, is engagement and knowledge dissemination. So most certainly any organization from RIT to individual students volunteering to any organization that goes out and tries to reach people and tries to educate people and tries to make this subject approachable and easy to understand and integrate in your life is an organization, is an effort, A, and an organization, B, worthy of praise. I'm a member, a founding member of One in Tech, which is an ISACA foundation, and it is designed to bridge the gap of gender disparity, unequal access, and sometimes no access, and education, the third pillar being education, all over the world. So the reason why ISACA, a worldwide institution, felt so strongly as to create this humanitarian foundation to promote and disseminate knowledge and make it accessible and provide the educational materials for free is exactly what you just said earlier. That it is at the end of the day, it is the way out. It is that you can have an educated discourse, a meaningful debate, only when both parties are equally informed. Because if both parties are not equal, I'm not suggesting that you can have a debate only among two experts. I'm talking about having a debate, a conversation about it, talking among two engaged individuals. So the level of engagement is something that we can discuss. How much do you need to know? Well, okay, how much do you need to know to drive a car? You're certainly not going to be a car mechanic, but you can probably change a tire.
Right.
Okay, so we consider that the minimum accepted level of engagement in order for you to be on the street. Okay, something similar, but this is where the conversation needs to be. The conversation needs to be between two engaged individuals operating off some sort of a common floor, and then we can actually have a conversation. Otherwise, we're having shouting matches between people that don't listen to one another and don't understand one another at all.
Sure.
It's a great question. How much can we trust institutions like banks compared to Google, who is obviously using our data, yeah, which we may not be as concerned about by Ian and Rihanna. We should be very concerned, very, very concerned about any institution that has our PII. There is a reason why big institutions like that are targeted, and part of the reason is they have a wealth of information that, if you put it together with other sources of information that you can hack, you can create a very strong profile and a very big database, a very strong database of PII that you can then manipulate for your own purposes. So banks, you should be very worried about. Hospitals, you should be very worried about. Insurance companies, you should be straight out paranoid. So all of those kinds of institutions, we need to be very, very worried about. And remember that there is a lot of the prevailing attitude by executives that are in this for the buck. And if you are starting to say, well, think about risk management, think about privacy, think about cybersecurity controls, their response back is, you're trying to cut into my profits. So we need to be very, very concerned and demand transparency and demand a minimum level of controls, which, by the way, gives rise to all of these regulations that you see coming now from all over the world, trying to control private data and how data is being transported. It's exactly because industry is not going to do it on their own. Industry is always going to try to make money as easily as possible and as much of it as possible. That's why I'm in business for. I'm in business for the money. I'm not in business for your blue eyes. So we as a society have to come by and say, time out, time out. Yes, I get it. You're not here for my blue eyes, but you can only discuss my blue eyes with my ophthalmologist and my optometrist. Other than that, my blue eyes are private data. So
it begs the question, though, right? I mean, especially right when he's talking about Google and Amazon and Facebook, right? They've got the premier security teams. They know their targets, right? Oh, yeah. Banks, banks are, you know, a dime a dozen, you know,
Right.
MTB, Five Star, Fifth Third, all these smaller name banks are all using third-party apps for their mobile banking. And
Absolutely.
it's I mean, how many times has your mobile app for your bank been updated, right? And why? Cybersecurity purposes, most likely, or other
Right.
features. So for me, it's like, you know, we have to live in this society because we live in it. But at the other hand, I'm a cybersecurity guy who's like, "Ooh, I hate using this app for my money."
Right.
You know,
Right.
how do you trust these organizations? How much are they investing in cyber? Right. And that's, I think, the concern to, you know, maybe this class and hopefully others in business to,
Yeah.
you
Oh,
know,
absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely should be the concern of this class. Again, this class represents the future, and it is a great future. And part of the issue here is recognizing that we need some sort of metrics.
yeah,
We need some sort of transparency, just the same way when the bank is in. If a bank is publicly traded, let's just go there and skip some of the
sure,
regulatory stuff. An institution is publicly traded. They submit a whole set of financials, every quarter. They
yeah,
submit strategic plans. They are subject to audit. They submit a lot of things to gain the confidence of investors to say, well, this is a sound business, and I believe that the shares are worth X. Part of these metrics that are being submitted by these companies need to be, what is your cybersecurity posture? What is, the risk component of the exercise? There are those that will argue, it's like, well, I cannot tell you what controls I'm using, because if I tell you and it gets out there, then there's going to be, it's like, okay, yeah, this is lame, and I don't want the name and configuration of your controls. What I want to know is, how seriously are you taking? What kind of stuff? What percent of your budget is going towards cybersecurity? What are your stated policies? What are you doing internally to educate your own people to
right,
make sure
right.
that the client data is sacrosanct? What are you doing about all of this? And those things are not about exposing your controls. These are about attesting to your business principles that ultimately generate value, which is reflected in your share price.
So in
So,
this,
so
so I was going to say, in this class, we talk about the NIST CSF and we talk
yeah,
about the maturity level, right?
yeah,
And that would be a great index, if you will, for many of these companies without, you know,
absolutely,
so yeah.
absolutely. Sonia, you have a last name much like mine, and I will honor you by not massacring it. What are your recommendations for students trying to get into this field? I think that your question is complex. Or as my wife said, it's both complex and complicated. If there are students that are entering the field at the undergraduate level, it depends on it depends very much on their aptitude and dream. Are they hardcore computer science, interested in going into coding and are approaching the field this way? Or are they business people or creative people that are using the value creation tools of information technology to do their own thing, be it a business or be it art? So the first question is like, which stakeholder group are we talking about here? Because all of them will approach it in a different way. If we're talking about the level of a graduate student, which is this group, where they already have made a decision on a certain career path, they're going one way or another, then I believe that in graduate school, there needs to be substantial exposure at the different aspects of the field, because it's a very different thing to be talking about incident response as opposed to talking about risk. So if you want to get into risk, you can get into risk via audit. You can get into risk through all of these different ways, which are much more straight up business, straight up finance, straight up risk management, as opposed to incident response, which not only can get extraordinarily technical, and you will need specialized surgeons to help you out with that, but even if you're not one of the surgeons and you're running the hospital that the surgeons are going to be in, you need to have substantial medical knowledge and substantial program management and project management knowledge. So it is such a wide field that, and the domains in the field are so many that it is very difficult to point it through a single gate. I wish I had predicted your question, because there is, in my second book, in the one that's coming out, I actually have a picture of this domain. It was done by a colleague, and it was posted at in LinkedIn, and I asked to use it by creation, and I can try to dig through it and put it up. You give me a second, but while we can discuss this, and I can dig through this, and I'm sure that I will find it. I spoke too soon. Oh yeah, here we go. Cybersecurity awareness presentations. Here is one PowerPoint. There, excellent. Here it is. This is part, so I can. Can I share my screen?
You can share your screen. Yep.
Okay, I can share the screen, and I only need to share this. Share. This is just the cybersecurity domains, and I hope that you can see it. Is it visible for everyone?
Not yet.
Not
there
yet.
it is. There it is. Yep.
Okay. So you know, in the middle it says cybersecurity domains, and you see all of these different branches that go off. There's governance branches. You know, happens to be one of my favorites. Is threat intelligence, user education, security operations, straight up career development for the domains, and then you have security engineering. You have all the frameworks and standards, and I agree that NIST CSF and its extension NIST PF, the privacy framework, are they're delicious. They're absolutely the thing. And then you have physical security, you have information security, and you have all that area of risk. So I can actually stop sharing now, maybe, perhaps, if I know how to. Oh yeah, like that, stop sharing. But that gives you a sense of the level of how extensive the domains are. In the book that's coming out on February 3rd, I have the updated slide. I just went quickly to a presentation that I knew was there, but there is even a more updated slide that looks even scarier now. So you have
that's opportunity, though. That's opportunity.
So I think this extraordinarily long-winded answer to Sonia is you need to align your desires, your heart with what it is that you want to do as a person with the field that will most address this. There's never going to be a perfect fit, but there is going to be a good enough fit. And certainly trying to introduce new thinking into the field, bringing people from diverse backgrounds, diverse points of view, they themselves being a diverse member of society, bringing these people into the field is a blessing, is an absolute blessing, and very needed, very much needed.
I'm going to add a little bit to that. I mean, that was the reason we had this too. I think this series started this. Somebody pointed out that I had all male speakers, so next time we have to do all female. But besides that, we've picked people from all different walks of the cybersecurity life, and I think that hopefully Sonia, you've seen that. We've got a guy from the financial tech industry next after you today, Marco Di Pasquale, who's an RIT alum. But there's all of these little niches, right, that cyber plays in that each of these guys have told us about, and you included tonight as well. So it's been interesting to bring all these unique people together and just hear the different insights. You also touched on diversity, right? And somebody had said earlier, I think it was last week, don't stay in your lane. Right, find other people outside of your lane to learn from, because
right.
it helps build the characters that we are.
Yes, it does.
Finbar has another question for you there.
How can businesses do a better job training their employees on cybersecurity? Allow me to be glib and say, well, they can start. Step one, start.
Yeah.
So you would be surprised how many businesses straight up don't do any of this. They don't do any cybersecurity awareness. So the best way that I found, if we're in the small and mid-sized business space, the best way is lunch and learn, in my view, because it is informal, it opens the ground to questions, and it makes it personal, because you can have, it's not just about throwing a PowerPoint on a screen. It's about explaining why this matters in business and why does this matter to you personally. The minute that you get into the why does this matter to me personally, you get people's attention. So all the cybersecurity awareness training that I do, it is always individually focused. So for example, I do pro bono work with a small Catholic school in New Jersey called St. Joseph's, and every year I do the cybersecurity awareness training for the teachers. And by the way, you couldn't have a more dedicated, loving group of people dealing with all these children. But when it comes to cybersecurity and technology, you're talking about a small parochial school. Go from there.
Right.
And so the only thing that makes sense, the only way that I can sensitize these teachers to cybersecurity is by making it personal. By like, let me have your phone. Let's see. And you go from there. You start with the person, and by extension, you now have you can extrapolate to the organization, right? Everything that you do on this phone, if it has corporate data in it, then you are a link between a hacker and this organization. So how do you protect that? How do you protect that? Well, there could be policies, don't bring your, and so forth. There are controls that you can protect it. And by the way, this very interesting piece is everybody now is bring your own device at work, right? So you bring your own phone at work, and especially now with this horrible pandemic that has been plaguing the world, is everybody work from home. And very frequently when you're working from home, a lot of people are working with their own personal devices. So if one of the questions about cybersecurity is like, well, what do you want to do about that? I mean, how do you extend the perimeter of protection to now be everybody on the planet, essentially? And it's like, well, aside of the fact that there are technologies that will allow you to do that, consider that you have a few simple controls. One of them is don't let them use personal equipment. Use equipment that's provided by the company. Well, yeah, that's going to cost an arm and a leg. Right. So how much is that worth it to you? In our company, Tmg Media, and we are a very small firm. Every single member of the firm has company-provided cell phones and company-provided laptops. Every single one. Why? Because it's worth it to me. I can't have a consultant go to any business with a personal phone that I do not control. If there's going to be a separation with that consultant, I need to control where the data has been. I need to be able to look at the client in the eye and say, listen, such and such has happened. There was an incident. Bob is no longer with us. But everything that Bob has done is in these two pieces of equipment, and Mary, who is in charge of the account right now, has all of the pertinent data and can follow through. I need to have that ability to say that, something that would be removed from me if the individual had their own personal gear. So I can't do that. A lot of other clients say, well, I can't afford to do that. So how can you do, what other ways can you do it? And that's when things start getting really, really tricky, right? Because if Rick is working for me and I tell Rick, well, bring your own device. Well, first of all, Rick's question is like, well, are you going to pay me for that? Are you going to compensate me for the use of my device? Right. So it's like, yeah, well, all right, I'll pay half your phone bill. Okay. And now I say, well, Rick, there's this cybersecurity thing I'm really concerned about. So our IT people are going to put a tool on your phone to make sure that's used properly. At which point Rick is like, time out, wait a minute. My phone, my device, my children's pictures are on that phone. So I am not letting, that guy go anywhere near my phone. So now you have all of these conflicts that are natural between what's my private data, what's my professional data, and all that kind of stuff. So going back to cybersecurity awareness, start with the individual, start with making it happen. At the minimum, if you're a small business, once a year is fine. The more you go up the food chain in size of business, the more frequent the cybersecurity awareness training needs to be. There comes a point in the story where the lunch and learn is no longer viable. The company has hundreds of employees or thousands of employees, so there isn't going to be any lunch and learn. At that point, you need to establish a formal cybersecurity awareness training program that typically comes out of the human resources department. There are vendors that do an excellent job at this, and there's quizzes that are involved, there is videos, there is interactive training, and there is testing that happens throughout the year and reinforces that. So you can buy packages from many reputable companies that can be rolled out to the firm that has hundreds of employees that can then help in doing that. But the critical step is, of course, and it is a critical step in governance as well of cybersecurity, is that the executives and the executive team need to evangelize cybersecurity. If they don't, if the executive team, if the C-level suite, is talking with both sides of their mouth, yeah, we're going to do multi-factor authentication for everybody but the president, because he can't possibly tolerate putting the code from the cell phone onto the password field. It's like, okay, that's, what message are you sending there? So the C-level team has to be completely on board. They have to lead by example, and they have to evangelize proper cybersecurity precautions the same way they need to evangelize ethical business practices, whose responsibility is to propagate ethics throughout the business organization. Well, it's the leadership's responsibility to say, we don't do that here. We don't act this way here. And what matters to us is this, that, and the other. So all of these things are linked. So that would be my short answer.
With things like legislation and GDPR and other major things California has and New York has, are we seeing the C-suite wake up, or is it not a top-down effect? Or are we seeing it? Yeah, are we seeing it from hey, Target got zapped, maybe we will too? Is it a combination of realization?
Among enlightened companies, yes, there is a realization of what matters, and you need to give companies a break in the sense of saying, look, this thing didn't used to matter yesterday. It matters now. I need to shift my focus from one to the other, and I get it now, and let's see what we're trying to do with it. So there is a level of engagement and enlightenment that involves organizations like that. But there is a lot of other organizations, if not the majority of them, that this is just another regulatory burden. This is just yet another thing that some bureaucrat in some capital somewhere has dreamed up to make my life difficult and to cut into my profits. So there is a lot of that attitude, unfortunately. The California passed CPRA just now, and it's funny because my book is in production right now. I actually have the galleys, and I had to call the publisher, who is Wiley, and say, well, look, it would be a mistake if we really didn't include a few things that have happened after November 3rd. So is that okay with you? And they were very accommodating. He said, yes, that's fine, insofar as it is a little bit here and there, change a few paragraphs to include CPRA and its impact in CCPA, for example. There's a couple of other things that happened in Brazil and a couple of other areas that needed to be included. But yeah, there is a disconnect between the legislation, the act of the legislation itself, and why it's there, and what it means to the business. And there is, for the vast majority of businesses, I dare say, not just the majority, the vast majority, it is a regulatory burden that I would rather do without. Certainly Google and Facebook would most certainly rather do without GDPR, right?
Right. guess I'm looking at it and going, then what is the right approach, right? And I think that's kind of, in a sense, what Finn was asking here. How do we, do better training? How do we get the culture, the awareness, to change? And hopefully it is, students in this class or students from the business side that are kind of, hey, look, it's not bolt-on anymore. It needs to be baked in, which has always been a thing, even with software, right?
Right. Well, there are deep philosophical divides worldwide. That we saw them reflected in our most recent election, but this is a worldwide phenomenon. This is not a United States-centric event. These deep philosophical divides, political, reflect economic ideology divides as well. To oversimplify this, the idea of like, look, the marketplace will take care of its own. There is zero need for all of this legislation. The marketplace will take care of its own. If it works for the marketplace, it will go on and propagate. If it doesn't, it will die, and we don't have to worry about it. And they list a variety of a free market example of how some things have succeeded and how some things have failed. This argument tends to ignore the very real human implications of failed experiments. For example, health insurance left on its own will continuously be more and more and more restrictive so that only the most healthy people would receive it, and therefore the insurance company makes the most. Well, that's a market thinking, for example, because the insurance company doesn't have a social contract with you; they want to make money. And then there is the other side of the divide that says, well, the free marketplace is essentially the jungle. And guess what? We left the jungle. We left the jungle behind. And we built great temples of humanity and of thought and of achievement. And part of the reason that we left the jungle is because we didn't like the survival of the fittest. We said, no. She is my sister, and I need to take care of her. And that approach means that I can't let you do certain things just because you can. And this is a very deep philosophical argument, a very philosophical divide. I cannot disguise where I fall on this side. I do fall on the side of regulation. I do believe that there are well-meaning scholars and professionals worldwide that spend their lives trying to think through these things and trying to change policy or institute policy to protect us all, exactly out of the care of like, we're not in the jungle anymore. So we need to take care of one another. We need to take care of one another as society. That's what society means, that we take care of each other. I understand the other argument. I do not agree with it at all. So that's where I come out.
Well, I'm looking at the clock. I don't see any more questions, but I do want to say that I only asked for an hour, and most of our speakers have actually given us a little extra time. It's up to you if you want to stay for another 30 minutes.
I am at your disposal. As you can tell, I'm not encumbered by the lack of things to speak about. And left on my own devices, I will be delighted to sit here and preach to the choir.
And that's somewhat of what it is, but that's good. Unfortunately, the people that probably need to hear us aren't here tonight, right?
Right. Well, that's part of our social problem, right? It's the fact that we are all living in these bubbles that have been created, and that they isolate us. And we're back into cybersecurity and back into IT.
I think we tried to avoid some of it, even with the name of this. We called it a cyber seminar. We didn't use the word security. We came out of the College of Business. We were hoping, that it would be a little different, but yeah, unfortunately. We are recording these, and hopefully somebody will, pick them up and say, oh, okay, yeah, I learned something tonight. And that's the goal here.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think that if there's anything that I would say was a takeaway from tonight, is not something that I said, but it's something that you said. and which is to be inclusive, to be diverse, and to invite many different points of view on the subject. I think that is certainly the greatest takeaway and the best advice given to any student of any subject. Do not stew in your own juice.
Right, right.
Seek diversity. Seek opposing views. Think it through. Stay engaged in any of the subjects. And it's a very difficult thing to do. It is a really very difficult thing to do. We're tired. We're all very tired. Life has become frantic. We're all working with a phone next to our head 24/7. If you don't answer the email from the boss, you know, our life has really changed, and it's so stressful, so full. It is really difficult asking people, hey, you know what? You got to stay engaged. You got to stay open. You got to do this. You got to do that. And people are like, are you kidding me? Man, I just want to go to bed. I want to get some sleep. You know, and I get it. I get it. It's hard, but you know, we do hard. We do hard well, and we will do this. Oliver asks the questions. Tell us more about your new book, title, release date, and the like. The title is Privacy, Regulations, and Cybersecurity, the Essential Business Guide. It is a sequel to the first. It is put out by Wiley, like the first book. It is going to be released on February 3rd. That's the pub date that's shown on Amazon. And what it is about, how did it come about? It came about because I was fascinated, first and foremost, to be perfectly truthful, by privacy. I was just absolutely fascinated by the subject of privacy, from its definitions, its history, its implications. What does it really mean? I was just absolutely, really fascinated by that. And initially, I wanted to just write a whole book on privacy, just nothing else. Well, it ends up that, of course, as you would expect, the subject is indeed vast. There is beautiful scholarly treatments of the topic, anthropological, social, you know, all sorts of things. So, and it was not my place to just do a privacy book. So I was therefore, I took privacy and I take the reader through a journey, much like the book that you have read now. It is structured, it has the same tone and it has the same voice, the same kind of funny voice. And I take everybody like through, look, here's the definitions. Here's what everybody else is saying about what the definition of privacy is. And here's a brief history of privacy, a brief history. How did it used to work? How did it used to work in antiquity? When did privacy change? And you would actually be amazed how privacy has evolved over time. You know, for example, and I don't want to far exceed my allotted time here, before the Middle Ages, privacy was a very different concept in the ancient world, if you will. It was not what we think today. I mean, there was, you know, people would be sleeping all in the same room. So go from there. You know, you just use your imagination from there. Meanwhile, out east in Asia, privacy was a totally different concept. And even speaking about somebody else was considered to be a very serious affront, because those are the things that are not to be spoken about. This is so I take the reader through this journey of, here are the definitions, here's a brief history on privacy. And then the next step is like, if you liked the brief history of privacy part, here is the fine print, because there are some fundamental documents, much like the Constitution is a foundational document, right? There are foundational documents in the history of privacy, opinions by Warren Brandeis and the like, that are an absolute delight to dream. But I get it, it's not everybody's cup of tea. Just because you're weird and you like to read this stuff, it doesn't mean that everybody else is going to love it. But there is a chapter dedicated to this, and there are long excerpts of these kinds of opinions, these kinds of treatments. There's excerpts from papers, that deal with different aspects of privacy and so on and so forth. So that sort of finishes section 1 of the book, the privacy part, because the book is indeed in 3 sections, right? Privacy, regulation, cybersecurity. Now, regulations, I take the reader through a worldwide trip, and it starts in Europe. So we're taking the plane, we're going to Europe, we're stopping at key destinations. Go Europe, you go Asia, Oceania, Africa, South America, and back to the Americas. So in each one of these destinations, the key countries that have privacy regulations are shown, and they're all shown in the same format. So it's like, what's the regulation? What is it about? What's the impact? Are there any exclusions? What are the fines? So it's not the listing of the whole regulation, because if it did, it would be a 12-tom volume. So the regulation section of the book, yes, you can read it through, all the way through, and just get an overview of how it looks like country by country, or you can target it specifically and say, I am interested in what's happening in Nigeria. I'm interested in what's happening in Brazil. I'm interested in what's happening in China, and so on and so forth, in Japan, and look at that section. And then the last section of the book, which is the cybersecurity part, is based very much on the first book. So if you've read the first book, the third section is going to read identical. As a matter of fact, there are whole sections that are copied right over. Well, why? Well, because cybersecurity is cybersecurity is cybersecurity. It didn't change within a year and a half. So there are principles that are transferred over. But this time, we're talking about a privacy-centric cybersecurity program. Okay, well, what does that mean, and where is the impact of this? How do you embed privacy into a cybersecurity program? And you have this privacy by design concepts and all that. So in that, where you embed it is actually in assets, in asset valuation, right? So it is assets that are impacted by privacy. And privacy also has a lifetime, has a life expectancy, has a life cycle. So I create this methodology where you read it through and you see how you can tag these assets and how you can create this so that you can navigate through managing the privacy component of the cybersecurity program. Luckily, we also have NIST. NIST has CSF, and now also NIST has PF, the privacy framework. And those two things marry really, really well. They do marry really, really well, but they are assuming 2 different things. One is that you have a cybersecurity team, and the other one is that you have a privacy team whose job is to do the privacy framework. And you can't do both. So one of the things that is important in this book is to understand that you need to handshake now with yet another group of stakeholders, the privacy people. So there is a Venn diagram, and NIST has the original diagram that says, this is what CSF covers, blah, 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 the 5 items, and this is what privacy covers. Those 2 things intersect, and they have 3 items in common. So I took the diagram, and we are doing this from a cybersecurity perspective. So I point to the cybersecurity thing that says, this is my circus. I point into the intersection of the Venn diagram and say, this is my monkey. And I point on the privacy side and says, not my circus, not my monkey. You have to know where to draw the line. Otherwise, you will be sitting there doing, both privacy work and cybersecurity work, and that's just not a good idea. So, so by the end of the book, we've worked through a privacy-centric cybersecurity program development, which, although there is a very large portion of it that's identical with the previous book, it is privacy-centric. And it closes with a chapter of, welcome to the future, now go home, which addresses all of these social commentaries that we have been struggling with in our conversation here tonight. So that's what the book looks like.
Very good, very good. Can't wait for it.
Me neither.
Literally, yeah. No, I can imagine. So take me down this path, right? We've got the CISO, right? The Chief InfoSec Officer or Cyber Officer. We've got some places now coming up with the Chief Risk Officer.
Right.
We've also seen, and maybe now this is the next, right? Chief Privacy Officer.
Yeah.
You see that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. In large organizations, there are chief privacy officers.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So it grows out of.
Yeah, it actually grows. A lot of the privacy officers right now, this is fairly young, come right out of the DPO, the data protection officer.
Okay. Okay. Not out of HR, or maybe kind of a sideline out of path.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Because GDPR requires you to have a DPO in large organizations. So they overload the DPO role with privacy. And at some point, the poor DPO person breaks in half and goes, oh my God, what have you done to me? And then they hire somebody who's dedicated to privacy. But there isn't a lot of professionals that really have domain expertise, right?
Right. So this goes back to Sonia's question of another place to prepare for.
Right. Yeah, in the question of how do you get into this field, like just get into this field because we need you, because we don't have enough cybersecurity professionals, we don't have enough privacy professionals for sure, and much to my chagrin, we are starting to actually see a decline in IT professionals. And by IT professionals, I don't. There are losses there as well. But IT professionals in straight up systems architecture, network management, straight up IT, user support, help desk engineering, all of that kind of work, we are starting to see people not get into the field. And it's understandable. It's understandable. To some degree, it's a little bit of a calling, right? You don't become an ER doctor because you think it's a fun idea to be working all night on your feet in a crazy place with people bleeding all over the place. That's a calling. You do that as a calling. It's the same thing being a teacher. It's a calling. It takes a lot to get up, stand in front of the class and say, let's engage. Let's talk about this, and I will teach you what I know, and you will teach me a lot more. That's a calling. Priesthood is a calling. There are some things that are a calling. And getting into these, dark room IT fields, like, the network managers and the server managers and the help desk people, all of that, that's tough work. You're dealing with mission critical systems, and the minute that they sneeze, 20 dinosaurs descend on you, wanting to tear you to pieces. So, it's not for the faint of heart. You should try incident response.
Interesting. I wonder if, with the push for cyber employees, because there has been obviously such a massive push for this, are we seeing the eye being taken off the ball in a sense and going, everybody's moving away from IT, the general IT and network, infrastructure management, and maybe heading towards the super sexy cyber. Is that a thought?
I think that's very plausible. I don't have the latest survey. ISACA runs a survey. I can see if it's out.
Just wondered. I mean, you wonder what all the factors are, right, and why things change. And we see it even in education. Why does this program take off versus this other one, right?
Right. No. Of course, I agree. ISACA, here we are. Resources. No, I don't see it. I don't think it's out yet. But in terms of organizations to join, not only I keep going back to Sonia about joining in the field. Belonging to ISACA is a key move. It's just get to isaca.org and become a member. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Just make it happen. If privacy is where you really want to be, the organization to join is IAPP. Also IAPP.org. The only thing they do is privacy, and they do it really well. So these two organizations, I think, would be excellent starting places, not only in terms of training, but in terms of resources, their library and their know-how and their community sharing is just, beyond equal. So I would strongly urge people to join ISACA and IAPP if privacy is what floats your boat. I think that we're out of questions.
Oh, we got a couple new ones just popped up, I think.
Really?
Or are they comments? I'm trying to read through them here. One's a comment.
I have the blue circle of death, and it says Zoom meeting not responding.
Uh-oh.
Uh-huh.
You're still here with us. We're listening to you.
This is a plus.
Yeah, we're still hearing you.
Although my Zoom screen shows Melissa, one of the interpreters, just frozen in place.
Okay.
But I can see the other interpreter working, and I can see you.
Well,
I don't have any other comments, though.
All right, so the comments I'm reading from Avi, as far as I'm aware, I agree with Chris in that there are shortages in the cybersecurity resources.
Right.
And from Greg, I am in IT. My belief is that there is still a need. But computers are getting better, like self-diagnosing, plus with a lot of virtual stuff and less hardware. Also, people are generally getting better with technology. And I would say that's true, right? I mean, as society has brought us all these new gadgets to our lives,
right.
We are becoming more familiar with the on-off switch and not having to call tech support to power it off and power it on again, right?
Yeah, I agree with the person that made these comments. I agree, there's still a need. But I also agree with the assessment that we are rapidly moving to everything as a service, everything as a service, infrastructure as a service, software as a service, pizza as a service. So
malware as a service.
Oh, that has existed for a while now. The issue with that is, first of all, that's not going away. That's clear. Right. That the cloud resources and the as a service is not going anywhere. The second thing is that part of the reason why it's not going anywhere because it's extraordinarily powerful, very affordable, and really scalable. I know a cybersecurity professional that does incident response work and forensic work. So he will take a hard disk that has been compromised, and he'll just go to AWS and essentially spin up a supercomputer that he will only use for like 6 hours, because that kind of power in 6 hours can analyze everything that there is on that hard disk and get him back the answers that he needs. Otherwise, it would have taken him months to go through the forensic work of the whole drive. Yes, he pays $16,000 for six hours of AWS, but his client is happy and he's happy because otherwise they would have paid 10 times as much. Now, all that being said, the power of the as a service and the virtual machines and the virtual networks and all that, they all have a common failure point, right? If you do not have connectivity, there is no going to that beautiful data center with your 300 virtual boxes. It's just, you're not getting there. Well, yes, but there will always be connectivity. Will there? Really? And there is many ways that you can lose connectivity, not just, the solar storm. I mean, you can lose connectivity because you can no longer afford it. You can lose connectivity because there has been a regional failure, be it a power failure or be it any other kind of failure that's interrupting connectivity. So in New York, when we had the horror of 9/11, there was a massive building that was an AT&T switch, AT&T Verizon switch, downtown, at point zero, and most of lower Manhattan and a lot of parts of New York could not get any phone service for months, not days. So how can you lose connectivity? Oh, trust me, you can lose connectivity. So you need to think long and hard about, I'm going to go cloud only. And you should check the business, because it may be more appropriate, architecturally speaking, to have a hybrid cloud. even when you're putting all your eggs into the cloud basket, keep at minimum a copy of that basket nearby. It may not be the most up-to-date thing, but it will keep you up and running.
Backup and redundancy. Yeah.
Right. Resiliency, right? Resiliency is part of the things that we all strive for. So that's very, very important. And who's going to create this? Who is going to create these architectures? IT people. And those servers that are virtual with invisible blinking lights somewhere in the cloud, who's going to configure these things? Who's going to run it? They can be self-healing all you like, but at the end of the day, it's going to take somebody configuring the damn thing. And that's not going away.
Self-configuring doesn't quite exist yet.
Right. And if it does, it will ask you the question, when are you going to let me out of the box? So you want to be careful with those self-configuring things.
Very good. Very good. I don't see any more questions, Chris.
Okay.
I'm gonna actually offer you a break tonight, and we'll let you get out of here a little early.
Well, thank you.
And I appreciate you being here with us tonight. We're going to take probably a 10-minute break before our next guest comes in. You're more than welcome to stay for Marco Di Pasquale. But I know that you're a busy man, and this hour and a half, we really appreciate.
I am honored, and I'm very appreciative of all of you. I am appreciative of the work you do. I'm appreciative of your dedication in the field. I'm appreciative of your wonderful comments. So I am humbled, and I am very, very thankful to participate. And I hope that I will be invited to do it again. Thank you all very, very much. And Rick, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Chris, appreciate it again, and we will talk soon, I'm sure.
Great. Sounds great.
All right. Take care. Happy Thanksgiving and happy holidays.
Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving. Stay healthy. Stay safe. Keep your masks on.
Thank you, Chris. Good night.